Welcome to the Tech Playbook, where we go inside the stack. Have you ever wondered how that new button or feature just magically appears in your favorite app? Well, spoiler alert, it's not magic. It's actually a really fascinating journey from a tiny spark of an idea all the way to your screen. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and map out the entire life cycle of a software feature, which is great for non-engineers and founders trying to understand the whole development process. So here's our roadmap. We'll follow an idea from its initial spark, see it run through the gauntlet where only the strong survive, then we'll watch it get a blueprint, actually get built, and finally make its big debut with the launch. Let's dive in. All right, first up, the spark. You see, every great feature starts here. But it's not just some random light bulb moment in the shower. The best ideas don't come from guessing what people want. They come from deeply understanding the problems people are actually trying to solve. This whole initial phase has a name. It's called product discovery, and its entire mission is to make sure you're building the right thing. Because think about it, the biggest failure in tech isn't building something badly. It's building something perfectly that nobody needs. That is the million-dollar mistake that product discovery is designed to prevent. So how's it work? Well, it's basically a three-step dance. First, you learn. You go out and talk to your users, you dig into the data, you become a total expert on their problems. Then you generate a whole storm of possible solutions. And finally, and this is the most important part, you test your best ideas, maybe with simple prototypes, just to see what actually works with real people. It's all about learning fast before you spend a ton of money building big. Now, just because an idea is good, that doesn't mean it gets built. Oh no. First, it has to survive the gauntlet. This is the brutal but necessary process of prioritization, where teams have to figure out what's a nice-to-have versus what's an absolute must-have. This quote just perfectly nails the challenge here. Ideas are everywhere, right? They come from customers, the sales team, the CEO's dog. But time and resources, those are always limited. You simply can't do everything, so you have to make some really tough strategic choices. So how do you choose? Well, you don't just throw darts at a board. Teams use these really cool frameworks to take emotion and gut feelings out of the decision. We're going to look at three popular ones: RICE, for when you need data; Moscow, for when you need to get aligned fast; and Kano, for when you want to focus on what truly wows your users. First up is RICE, and this one's for the data lovers. It makes you score every idea on four things. Its reach, how many people see this; its impact, how much does it help us; your confidence, how sure are you about all this; and the effort required to build it. It spits out a single score so you can objectively compare very different kinds of ideas. Now, Moscow is way less about complicated math and more about getting everyone on the same page fast. You just sort your features into four buckets: things you must have, things you should have, things you could have, and, just as important, things you won't have, at least not right now. It forces a really clear conversation about what's in and what's out. And finally, we have the Kano model, which is all about feelings. See, it recognizes that not all features are created equal in the eyes of a user. Some are just basic needs, like brakes on a car. You only notice them when they're gone. Others are about performance, where more is better. But the real magic is in the delighters. These are the cool, unexpected surprises that make people fall in love with your product. Okay, pop quiz time. Let's say your team wants to quickly decide the scope for an MVP. That's a minimum viable product. You need to get aligned, and you need to do it fast. Which framework are you going to grab? RICE, Moscow, or Kano? Write your answer to the question below in the comments. So, our idea survived the gauntlet. It is officially on the roadmap. What's next? Well, now it's time to create the blueprint. This is where we turn that winning idea into a super detailed instruction manual for the people who are actually going to build it. This blueprint is a formal document called a PRD, or Product Requirements Document. You can think of it as the project's single source of truth. So if a designer, an engineer, or anyone has a question about what we're building or why, the PRD is the one place they can go for the official answer. It gets everybody rowing in the same direction. A really good PRD leaves absolutely nothing to chance. It starts by answering the why and who. What's our goal, and who are we building this for? Then it details the what, exactly how this feature should work, click by click. It sets up the guardrails, things like security rules or performance targets. And super importantly, it defines the plan, which also clarifies what we are not building, which is key to preventing projects from getting bigger and bigger. Okay, with that beautiful blueprint complete, we finally enter the build. This is where the engineers step up to the plate, and they start translating all those documents and designs into actual working code. Now, this is not some chaotic coding free-for-all. The build phase is guided by something called the Software Development Lifecycle, or SDLC. Just think of it as the playbook that makes sure features are built in an organized, efficient, and high-quality way. Now, there are a bunch of different versions of the SDLC, but pretty much all of them share these core stages. First, design, where the technical and visual plans are made. Then, development, where the fingers hit the keyboard and the code gets written. And happening right alongside that is testing, where another team does its absolute best to break everything the developers just built. And that testing part, it is absolutely non-negotiably critical. Why? Well, this quote says it all. Finding a bug during development is a pretty quick and cheap fix, but finding that exact same bug after it's live in front of millions of users, that's a 5-alarm fire. It's a catastrophe that burns through time, money, and your company's reputation. You know, smart teams think about testing as a pyramid. The huge, solid base of that pyramid is made up of unit tests. We're talking thousands of tiny automated tests that check if the smallest individual pieces of code, like a single function, are working exactly as they're supposed to. The next layer up is for integration tests. So, if a unit test checks a single Lego brick, an integration test makes sure that all the bricks snap together properly. It verifies that different parts of the code can talk to each other without causing any trouble. And then, at the very tip top of the pyramid, you have a small number of end-to-end tests. These are the big ones. They don't just check the bricks. They test the whole Lego castle by simulating a real user's entire journey, like logging in, adding an item to a cart, and checking out. Okay, the code is written, all the tests have passed. It is time for the final, and let's be honest, often the most nerve-wracking step, the launch. It's time to release our beautiful new feature out into the wild. You don't just push a big red button and pray. Teams use these really clever strategies to launch safely. One is called blue/green deployment. You have 2 identical live servers. You deploy the new code to one, and when you're ready, you just flip a switch and all the users are instantly redirected. If something's wrong, you just flip it back. No sweat. Another popular one is canary deployment. You release the new feature to a tiny group of users first, like a canary in a coal mine, and you watch closely. If they're happy, you gradually roll it out to everyone else. So let's recap this whole journey, shall we? It all starts with discovery, finding a real user problem. Then comes prioritization, because you just can't do everything. Next, specification, where a clear PRD acts as your map. Then you build it with quality, which means testing early and often. And finally, you deploy it thoughtfully to minimize your risk. This whole process isn't just about bureaucracy, it's a proven system for turning a risky idea into a successful product. And that brings us to our final question for you. After seeing this whole process laid out, what do you think the bigger risk is for a company? Building the wrong thing perfectly or building the right thing poorly? We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe to the Tech Playbook Inside the Stack for clear, practical tech education. This is the Tech Playbook, your Inside the Stack.